Welcome to the Effortless English Show with the world's #1 English teacher, AJ Hoge, where AJ's more than 40 million students worldwide finally learn English once and for all, without the boring textbooks, classrooms, and grammar drills. Here's AJ with a quick piece to help you learn to speak fluent English effortlessly.
Overcoming grief. That's our topic today, overcoming grief. Practical tips and strategies. And, this topic comes from, I think it was a Instagram comment I got. Someone asked me to talk about this topic, how to handle grief. And especially the death of a parent. So that's what someone suggested, and I thought, that's a good topic. And I lost my mom. My mom died a few years ago, so this is still fairly fresh in my mind, this topic. So I can talk about that, because grief is very, very difficult, and grief is that emotion we feel. What's the definition of grief? Grief is that feeling of great sadness and loss that we feel when typically when someone we care about dies, or if we lose someone or we're separated. This might even be something like a breakup or a divorce can create feelings of grief. But mostly and especially this feeling comes when we lose someone who dies. It could even be a pet, and of course it could be all the way up to a very close family member, and this can be a very difficult feeling and emotion, a very, very painful feeling. Today I'll talk about specifically the grief, especially of losing a parent, something that most of us will experience. If you live long enough, you're going to most likely experience the death of both of your parents. And so this is very, very difficult. And sometimes we have, other grief. I had, when I was younger, when I had actually it was my first girlfriend, who I wasn't dating anymore, but she's still, was still a friend, and she died in a car accident with her 2 children, and that was very intense grief at the time. It was very shocking to me. I think grief can be especially difficult for younger people. As we get older, I'm 56, almost 57 now, and as we get older, we experience grief, we have losses, and as you get older, I think you start to realize that everyone dies and that we ourselves are going to die. So it's still difficult, but it's a little more expected. We expect it more. Sometimes when we lose someone when we're young, it can come as a big shock, because a lot of young people, I was like this, don't think about death at all. And you kind of feel like, death is something that, it doesn't happen, or it's so far away. And so if someone you love, that you're close to, you care about, suddenly dies, that can be a very, very big shock. Now, just quickly, my website is effortlessenglishclub.com. If you're looking on the screen, effortlessenglishclub.com. A lot of people will start the new year. They will join one of my courses, a New Year's resolution. They'll say, now's the time. I will be fluent in English. I will speak English fluently. I will speak English powerfully and effortlessly. And a lot of times they do that in January. We have a lot of people, lots and lots of new members join my Power English course, my VIP program in January, but you don't have to wait. Maybe start early. Instead of waiting to January at the beginning of the year, why not start now? Give yourself an early gift and join one of my courses. That's my only official website. Anything else selling my courses is a fake, a pirate's, and they'll steal your credit cards. And anyway, we're going to get rid of them. Don't worry. We're working on it now. Okay, so let's talk about this. What can we do? Because the title is Overcoming Grief, Practical Tips and Strategies. First of all, you need to accept it. So I'd say step one is, go ahead and cry and let yourself be sad and feel those painful feelings of loss. So when my mom, died, I cried like crazy because I was very close to my mother, and I talked to her nearly every day. And she was planning to come visit us in Japan again at that time when she died, and it was quite unexpected. Of course, she was older, but not in great health, but it was still unexpected. And it was very, very painful. My whole life I'd been quite close to my mom. So, the first thing is that it's totally natural. Don't try to get over it immediately, right? Because you're not going to. And all you do, if you just push down those feelings, they just come out in unhealthy ways later. So, sometimes, in different cultures, especially for men to cry is seen as, not masculine or something. And the thing is, you don't have to cry publicly. You can just wait until it's just you, and it's fine. Just let it out, And in other cultures, it's totally natural and seen as normal and healthy, and it's fine to do it in public. And but whichever way, if you have, I recommend just letting it out. Feel the grief, feel the sadness, and feel the loss, and let it all come out. And you shouldn't be happy, and you're not going to be happy about it, and that's totally fine. And just feel really sad for a while and let yourself feel that and get it out by crying, by talking. You can write about it, whatever it is you need to do, let it come out. Now, the next thing is step two. Eventually we do want to start to heal, right? You're always going to miss this person because you love them and cared about them. I'll always miss my mother. I think about my mother every day. So, that's something I can never replace. So you're never going to feel happy about it, but you can heal this, that intense, terrible sadness and grief, and get a better, make peace with it, accept it and make peace with it. And at this point, I guess step two is that, this is my personal recommendation, is that you need to really deeply think about what is death, what is life, where do we come from, where does life come from, what happens after we die. I mean, these are very, very, I think, the most important questions of life and existence. Where did all this come from? Why are we here? Is it really just random? That's what the current clown world empire of lies will teach you in the media and schools, but that's a ridiculous, it's an absolutely ridiculous thought and idea. So, and it will give you no comfort, but more than that, it's just logically and rationally ridiculous. So you need to answer this question. I recommend starting with near-death experiences. I have talked about this myself, but this gave me great comfort and a great understanding and great confidence that, my mom's death was not empty or meaningless or even final in a spiritual sense. So, and the nice thing about near-death experiences is that mostly they are non-sectarian. A sect means a very specific religious group. So you can read near-death experiences, and it doesn't matter if you're a Muslim or a Christian or a Buddhist or Sanatana Dharma or whatever, Taoist, Sikh. Um, because, these are the experiences near death, the experiences of people who die, clinically die. It means the heart stops, the brain waves stop for some time period. And then, by modern medicine, modern technology, they're brought back somehow. Right? They do the thing on the chest, shock them, or they shoot them with drugs, or they do some kind of surgery, or somehow they get bring them back to life again. A lot of these people, the ones that are dead for a fairly long time, maybe they drown in like ice cold water. So their brain and body are kind of preserved, and they drag them out, and they're actually brain dead, and heart stops for a fairly long time, and they manage to bring them back. Okay? And many of these people have had very similar experiences while they were dead. And there are now actually many books, and also on YouTube you can find many videos where these people talk about their experience while they were dead. There are also some very good books where different scientists or researchers or just interested people have interviewed lots and lots of these people who died and came back. And they've compared their stories. And, in some ways the stories can be quite different, but there are also some very important similarities that you see in these near-death experiences again and again and again and again. Very, very similar experiences. And this starts to give you great confidence that, there is something after death. And not just something, not just anything, not just random, but there's actually a pattern that we can be confident about. I give the example, with these are witnesses. So it's just like if there was a crime, if you have one person sees the crime, they say, oh, that guy, he attacked the other person. So in a court, that one person, that he's called a witness. And, if one person says it, you might think, well, maybe he's telling the truth. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he made a mistake. Maybe he's right. There can be all these different ideas. But when 30 people give a similar story, when 100 people give a similar story, when 500 people give a similar story, then you can have a lot of confidence that the story is true. Because you have 500 people, and they're all quite different, and they're all giving very similar stories and accounts of their experience, of what they saw, of what they experienced. So how does this help grief? Well, because when you read the near-death experiences, you realize that we are spiritual beings, that the major religions are correct. We are spiritual beings, that this material world is not all there is, that our consciousness, our soul, our spirit soul, does not end when this body dies. And that there is not only a spiritual experience, but there is you can call it a heavenly realm, paradise, Vaikuntha, whatever the name you want to use, but that it is a realm of great beauty and love and goodness. That these things are true. And every religion may have their specific teachings about these things, but a lot of the people who have near-death experiences are not even religious when it happens to them. And there have even been atheists, a decent number of atheists who have these near-death experiences. And then they come back and they're totally changed. Of course, they're not atheists anymore after that. But, and of course people from all different religions too. So reading about these and listening to the videos and the interviews with all these people who had died and come back and reading books about it, it really helped my grief with my mother. Gave me great comfort, tremendously, a big help with overcoming grief. So I recommend that if you have lost somebody, a parent or someone else, especially to death, that you also do this. Really read as many books as you can about near-death experiences, and get on YouTube and search for them and listen to the actual people tell their stories. There's a lot of them on YouTube now. And this is going to give you great comfort, because you'll realize that the person who died, you don't actually need to worry about them. So you will still feel grief and sadness because you miss them, but you won't feel so sad for them. In many ways, you might feel sad for yourself, because you might realize that, well, they really are in a better place. You'll hear people say this. They say this to people when someone close to them dies. Oh, your mom's in a better place. And sometimes we're like, yeah, okay, it doesn't help me when you say that. But, the truth is they are, most likely, unless they were a really horrible person. There's a good chance they are in a better place. And so anyway, I highly recommend it. And you don't need to be of any specific religion to be comforted by these near-death experiences. And this is scientific. This is direct experience and observation from people who died. Now, moving on, step number 3 to overcome grief, practical tips, is to, in fact, read the great spiritual scriptures, because there are great saints, prophets, gurus, acharyas, Buddhas, who have, through intense, very powerful fasting, prayer, meditation, grace, also experienced great insights or direct experience of what happens after death. It's not just one person, and it's not just one religion. You can find this across so many religions and so many great monks and prophets and whatever. Every religion has a different name for them. Gurus, saints. I'll use the word saints. It's an English word. So if you are of one particular religion, then you, of course, can focus on your own religion and read, of course, the great, whatever your main holy book or books are, and scriptures, and then also the writings of the various saints in your particular religion. I think, though, that it's actually quite comforting and interesting to read from other religions too. I do this. So, I've said many times, I'm a devotee of Sanatana Dharma, but I quite enjoy and learn a lot by reading from, the saints and teachings of Christianity and Islam, Taoism, Buddhism. So it's not an attack on your own religion. It doesn't mean you have to change religions. If you're a Muslim, you can still read about some of the great Christian saints, for example, and still be a great Muslim. And if you're same thing. If you're Christian, you can read about the great insights of Islam or Sanatana Dharma. There are great holy men and women and true devotees and who've really done what they need to do, these great saints, fasting and prayer and meditation, and we can learn from them, even if they're not from our own religion. And of course, focus on your own religion too. And then finally, the next step would be, I would say, is pray, a topic I've talked about recently. And prayer definitely helps with grief. And especially when you pray for the person who died. Pray for their soul, their spirit soul. I recommend you do this every single day for the rest of your life. So I have a routine now. Every night, before I go to bed, I pray, and part of that is I pray for my mom. I pray for her soul. I pray she is with God. I pray that, that she is in, a spiritual realm, heavenly realm, that she is, all these things. I pray for her happiness. So you can do this too, and I highly recommend that you pray for the person who died. And it doesn't matter, whatever they were like. If they were an atheist, and maybe they were a bad person, kind of some of us are not so lucky, and some people don't have, one or more parents that were not that great, but you still love them. So you can pray for their soul, and you pray that they will be forgiven. You pray that they will, even after death, find liberation, find salvation, and be changed. You can do this. You can still pray for them even after they're dead. And of course, if they're a good person, you can, if they were a good person, still pray for them. Why does this help you, though? Okay, it helps you because when you pray for them actively every day after they're dead, you keep a kind of connection to them, and in your own mind and heart, you keep them alive. You realize, and it makes it real that they spiritually still exist. They're not gone. Their body is gone. They are gone from this world, but they're not gone eternally. And this really, really, really will be healing and helpful to you. And it makes, but I think you need all of those things. You need the near-death experiences. You need to read about the great saints and prophets and scriptures. And you need to pray. Because if you just try to pray, but you don't do the other two, maybe your confidence is not so great. But when you read that and you really will feel it and start to realize, yes, there is something after death, then when you pray, your prayer has greater faith, greater confidence, greater power. And when you do all of this together, these three things, then you really can make that grief, that pain, much, much, much softer, and you can heal it. I feel now, after it's been almost 3 years since my mom died now, that I feel quite healed about it. And I recovered from it. I recovered from that terrible grief much more quickly than I expected. I mean, I really, I kind of dreaded it in my mind. When you get older, you start to realize my parents are going to die, and maybe soon. And, I really feared it. But by doing these three things, I really feel much more at peace with it. Of course, I miss my mom. I really miss that my mom can't see my children now. She would have been so happy to be with my children right now. And that's going to be step 4. Bonus tip number 4, have children. Have children if you don't already. Because having your own children, it helps so much. I think it would have been much harder if I didn't have kids of my own. But having my own kids made it easier to deal with the grief of losing my mom. Because I lost my mom, who was, in her 70s. But then I had my young children there. And first of all, the children demand, if they're young, your attention and focus. But also just there's a feeling of continuing. So, and there's a feeling of, okay, well, I'm going to be a good dad or mom to my children. And that's a way to honor your own parents. So that's another one. If you, I highly recommend have kids if you don't already. All right, so those are my tips for overcoming grief. It's a hard thing. It's hard. It's not easy for anybody. So I hope these help. And I'm giving you some deep and powerful answers. You might get on the internet and they'll tell you, go exercise, watch a movie, all this distracting stuff, whatever. It's not very deep. That might help you for an hour to just forget about it. But I don't think forgetting about it is actually the right thing to do. I don't want to forget about my mom, right? You don't want to forget about the person that you miss. So I don't think those kinds of tips are actually very healthy long term. If you're just stressed out, maybe for a short time. But these tips I'm giving you now are at a deeper level that will help you really deal with the grief long term. All right, let's get into our comments and questions. Okay. What time is it here? Asked Kamal Kanan. It is about 1 p.m. I'm outdoors, obviously. It's a little chilly. Hey, Vladislav, good to see you. Joker says hi from Bangladesh. Hello. Okay. Okay, oh, here we go. Vladislav has a question. It was last year my cousin lost her husband. Yeah, ooh, that's tough. He died at war. He'd been mobilized to the war in Ukraine. It's sad he was only 26. His wife is 25 with a 2-year-old daughter. I was also shocked. Yeah, well, right. So, right, this is brutal. Some grief is extremely tough. Losing parents is very difficult. But we do kind of expect it at some point because they're obviously older than us. It can be very tough. A husband or a wife or a child, the worst. Yeah. I think the steps are the same. I don't know. I would do the same thing in any of those situations, but this is the reality of life. As the Buddhists say, life is impermanent. We all know this. We try to forget it. And so much of modern life, media, is all about trying to totally forget. Don't think about death. Don't think about impermanence. But that is ridiculous. It's foolish. It's foolish. A lot of people, they try to pretend like it's not going to happen. It's easy to do when you're younger, but I think it's a very, very foolish thing to do because it is the big reality that we cannot escape. Pretending it's not going to happen, or just, I don't want to think about it, I'm not going to think about it, I'm just going to party and have fun. It's very short-sighted. It's foolish. Makes you easy to control, too. So, this is the number one thing you have to think about and figure out. Find answers for. The fact, yes, you are going to die. Everyone you know is going to die. And we never know when. And so you better figure out what is life? What is death? Where do we come from? Where do we go? What is the meaning of this life? For you got to figure it out, and you're not going to figure it out in 1 week. It's something that it's going to take years and years and years to think about and explore. So I highly recommend doing that, and don't wait until so many people wait until something happens like this, and then it's very, very, very hard. And don't wait till it's too late. Yeah, Dede Fitness gives another good point about grief. We can share our feelings with trusted friends and also family. Absolutely. Talk about your feelings of grief with other people you care about, friends and family. Yes, definitely. Z asks, how is your son doing? It's good to see you. My son, in my last show, I said, my son is doing fantastically well. I'm very, 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 very relieved and happy. So, doing great. Sari Edit says, you're the best coach ever. Did you know that? Well, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Okay, Maria Mogadam says, it's too tough losing someone you love. It is. I can't think about it. I hope God saves our loved ones and blesses those who pass away, especially your mother. Thank you very much. It is hard. This is the hardest thing we face in life. That, and also, I guess, sickness and injury and things before we die. So it's good to think about them at a deep level. Dimali says, we will move to another real life where you'll be in heaven if you follow the real creator. Right, read the near-death experiences, exactly. Amina asks, hey Amina, good to see you. Ask how are the kids? Both doing well. I'm fine and kids are doing great. Oh, Maria says, by the way, how are your friends Joe and Kristen? Are you connected to them still? Yeah, I talked to them. I talked to Kristen last week. Had a video call. She talked to my kids too a little bit. So they're doing great. All right, can you still see me? Okay. Oh, there's Olga. Good to see you, Olga. Olga says, I am... Make sure everyone can... All right, let's see. Where's Olga? Let me find Olga's comment again. Sorry. Where'd it go? Here we go. I'm very impatient and proud human being. God always shows me that in different situations, so I try to pray and be more patient. I want to be close with God. Thank you, AJ, that you talk about God. I also, Olga, have a similar weakness, which is patience. One of my many weaknesses or sins, and that's a big one for me too. And indeed, when you start to humble yourself and you start praying and really being honest about yourself, because we're usually not honest about, we think we're being honest about ourselves. And, we can compare ourselves to other people who are average and feel good. But when you start to compare yourself to the great saints, to the highest standards, right? The great saints of each religion or God himself, then you become very humble and you start to realize what a miserable little person you are. And I mean, you start seeing like it's just endless, all your weaknesses. That's how I feel. And impatience is one of my many. But impatience is a big one for me too. I'm not patient and I struggle. And of course, since I have kids now, I'm challenged on that one every day. And many times I fail. I'm trying. Yeah, Kanun says, we in Muslim countries pray for people who have passed away. It's a great practice to do. Very good. And pray for people who are still alive. Yeah, good point. I can't read the acrylic writing, but I think someone from the Ukraine says, we also pray for those who are still alive. Well, of course, that also, as do I. I do also. It's not either or, both. Scala says, I needed these words. I was hopeless. As a top student, I will fail my midterm exams. See, this is called perspective. We call it perspective. That means that we all have problems in life. Everybody does. It's the nature of this material world, this that we are in, is that there will always be problems. We're never satisfied. Nothing is permanent here. And so it's very good. This is another reason to think about these things, which are not immediately happy thoughts: death and loss and impermanence. Impermanence means not permanent, right? It means it will change. But another reason to think about these things a lot and deeply and religiously and philosophically is that it makes our other problems much smaller. We realize that other problems are not that big. If you're healthy, if you are surrounded by people you love, then failing an exam, failing a whole course, failing out of school, is it good? No. Do you like it? No, but it's quite small. It's quite a small problem compared to someone dying that you love, compared to having a very serious health problem, or someone you love having a serious health problem. Suddenly, those other problems you realize, not so bad. Not so bad. Okay. Do I believe in God? Yes, Maria. Let's see. Oh, hey, Lucia. Lucia says, hi from Brazil. I'm a friend of Medi's and Max's. Awesome. Yeah, great. Good to see you. Medi from Iran and Max from Italy, two of our very great VIP members and longtime Effortless English members. Say hi to both of them, please. Dawood Ibrahim, good to see you again. He says, long time no talk. Miss you. I miss you too. Thank you. Pirate Edit says hello. Thank you. Abeloff, have you heard about agnosticism? Of course. So an atheist is someone who says there is no God. They're anti-God. An agnostic is someone who's not sure, basically. They're like, I'm not sure. When I was young, I called myself an agnostic, which is a more honest philosophy and position and more rational than atheism. Agnosticism is definitely much more rational. Just say, I don't know. I don't know. I'm not sure. That's a very honest thing to do. So you got to read and think and explore a lot more. It might take a while. Okay, teacher Naim says, it's true, AJ, we cope better with the loss when we are older. I lost my mom 21 years ago, and my dad passed away a few weeks ago. Acceptance and resilience come with age. I said, yeah, right. So lost your mom, when you were much younger, and I imagine it was much more difficult, much more painful. But, as we get older, so I'm 56, as I've said, so I'm already realizing my own death is coming sooner. So I've had to think about it. And of course I know, like, my dad is still alive, but he's 81. So, I know realistically how much longer can he live? 10 years probably at the most. I don't know, because he has smoked his entire life. So I doubt he's going to live to 100. Maybe he could live to be 100, but unlikely. So, you just start to do the math and you start realizing. And so there's kind of in your own brain, you start to prepare for it more. And also you just know as you get older, you've already faced loss and difficulty and challenges more. And so all these things do help. Marwa asks, how many kids do you have? 2. Shadik says, deep prayer helps us stay away from grief. Yeah, just pray more, pray more, pray more, and do the other things I recommended too. Fernando Diaz says, hey, good to see you again too. As part of my learning, I realized that in order to understand what happens in my life, first I have to accept it with humility. This is very Taoist thought. Yes. I'm happy to hear your son is better. I'm now praying it works. Yes. So this is a good point. You can't deal with anything if you don't accept it first. And you'll see in psychology, people write about steps of grief. And the first one's denial, where you when something bad happens, we first want to just say, it's not happening, it's not real, right? Like, that's not helpful at all. And so you do first have to just, humility and accepting that it happened. And that's easier if you think about it beforehand and understand the deeper truth. If you can accept that deeper truth, then when something in your own life happens, you can accept it faster and more easily. So if you accept the truth of death, mortality, impermanence and change, loss, the nature of this world, then when these things happen in your own life, they're not easy still, but you're more prepared to handle them than someone who tries to pretend that they just don't want to think about any of it. Because it doesn't matter. You can try to pretend and not think about it. You can do that for a while, but something's going to happen eventually. There's no avoiding it. So it doesn't help to not think about it, because you will be forced to think about it eventually. Why don't you read about Islam religion? I will read more about Islam. And also, another religion I'm very fascinated with recently that I'd like to read more about is the Sikh religion, which I really know almost nothing about it. It seems it's kind of think of it as in between Islam and Sanatana Dharma, but I'm pretty ignorant about it, and I'd like to learn more about it. But I know that they have a lot of names for God, and they use both names of God that have a Sanatana Dharma origin, such as Rama, Krishna, Narayana, and then but they also use Allah and names of God that have an Islamic source. So I'll read about both of those. If you have English sources, that I could read about, just put them on my Facebook or Gab if you have recommendations. Okay, a few more, and then I'm going to go. Let's see, what are we doing on time here? Yep, I'm going to go. A couple more minutes. Okay, let's see. Amina says, what are your plans for 2025? Well, plan number 1 is I'm going to be back here doing a lot more shows, much more active with Effortless English again. I know I've been gone like a year. In my last show, I talked about why. The reason is that, my son had to have surgery, and it was a whole year of preparing for that, and we actually moved from Japan to America so that he could have surgery here in America. And it was just these huge changes and tons of stress this year, huge amount of worry. And, thank God my son had surgery here. Everything went very, very, very well. And so I'm looking forward to a lower stress year in 2025 and having a lot more time and a lot more energy for you and for Effortless English. It's probably my main plan. Plan number 2 for 2025. Many of you will have the same plan, which is just better fitness and health. Because this year, I was so stressed this year, I gained weight, I was eating terribly, I just wasn't not focused on health and fitness this year at all. So I have some work I need to do in that area. Wonderful World is the name of the... whoops, just lost it. Sorry, they jump around here on YouTube sometimes. Let me find it again. Wonderful World, where is it? Sorry, I was about to read their comment. Oh, sorry, where is it? Where is it? Come on. Okay, let's see. Well, anyway, I lost it. So I'm going to start at the bottom and go backwards. All right. Amina says, stick to your regular exercise routine. Walking, cycling, yoga, anything that can distract you or offer some focus for your loss. It does help for short term. It's also just a good thing to do in life. You know, our bodies, this is another thing a lot of people don't like to think about, especially when they're young, is that your body is going to age. You will get older. People in the comments sometimes, oh my God, AJ, you're older. Yes, of course I'm older. So, you're older too. You don't feel it yet, but you will. So there's no point getting upset about aging. It cannot be avoided. You can do your best to age well, keep yourself in decent physical fitness and ability, but there's no way to avoid it completely. Yeah, Ismet says it's hard to figure out where we come from and where we go. Or everything just thoughts or not. It's very hard to know exactly. Yes, it is. People have been thinking about this, focused on this for thousands of years. So this is why I recommend, you think about it rationally yourself, of course, but I recommend highly the near-death experiences because it's the most scientific, science-like evidence. It's evidence. I don't like using the word science. Science is so corrupt now. Don't even like that word anymore. But it's direct evidence. People died and they came back. So that's direct observational evidence, direct witnesses to death. So that is something. That is more than something. That's big. It's huge. And in the far past, this was not common. They did not have modern medicine, technology to bring people back. So if someone had a heart attack in the past, they pretty much just died. They weren't brought back to life in the ER, in the emergency room, right? But now, because of all this medical technology, it's a much more common thing. The last, 50 or more years, for someone to die, their heart to stop, their brain to stop, and then they're brought back. So now we have so many of these witnesses who have experienced this, and it's not random what happens to them. There are patterns, very strong patterns. So this is, I think this is the place to start. If you really want to explore this idea, what happens after death? If you find out what happens after death, then you can start to figure out maybe what happened before birth. But I think that that's a great place to start. And then that will give you much greater confidence to start reading about, religious writings and great monks, great prophets, great scriptures, because it's not just blind faith. It's faith, but it's not blind. It's based on direct experiences. So that's where I recommend. Okay. Oh, Rashid Hamwi says, AJ, best wishes for you and your family with a €2 donation. Rashid, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you. All right, a couple more and then I got to go. Ladafsal says, my cousin told me she'd seen God in her dream. He told her she might not trust in him because she asked him to save her husband at war, but it was too tough. Yeah, this is hard because all prayers do not come true, and we die, and bad things happen. That's right. Believe me, I've struggled with this myself. So, but we have to have a perspective that is, again, when we focus on the spiritual and eternal, we start to see this short life in a different way. No matter how hard or how terrible the suffering now and here during this short life, how does that compare to billions of years spiritually? Right? Suddenly it does change the perspective of our difficulty and suffering here, and that perhaps that suffering does have a purpose, no matter how terrible, if we will accept it and open ourselves to it, which is not always easy, but I think that's the best answer I can give. Okay, I think that is it. Okay, I'll end with this. Wonderful world. I found your comment. It says, pray for you and God bless you and God will always be with you. Thank you very much. That's very kind. All right, I think that's it. Okay. Yeah, lots of people saying God bless you and your family. It says Lena says that as well. Thank you. And Ismet says, you're not older, boss. Okay, thank you. All right, so that's it for today's program. So what was our topic today? Our topic was, overcoming grief, handling grief, some practical tips and strategies. So, again, you're going to feel pain. So that first step of just accepting it completely, crying, and you're going to need that for a while. You can talk about it, you can cry, you can write about it, you can feel miserable because you're going to very much miss that person, right? Step number 2 was, read near-death experiences, books and accounts, and also watch videos about near-death experiences, interviews with people who died and came back. For me, this was tremendously helpful. Number 3, read the writings of religious writings, scriptures, writings of various saints, gurus, prophets, Buddhas, whatever word you want to use. Saints, I'll just say saints. And then my final tip was have children of your own, because it does help. It does help you deal with grief, because that life, that amazing life, that vibrant new life of the children, it's a great blessing, and it does help with grief as well. All right, effortlessenglishclub.com is my only official website where I sell my courses. Go there, effortlessenglishclub.com. I'll be back again with another show soon enough. All right, lots of love to you all. Bye for now.